Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another emergency live stream because the Knicks did a thing. And earlier today, they did a thing that left people unhappy. I trust the thing they did today is a thing that will make people happy, although it will probably also continue to raise questions. We've been talking about that a lot already because we've been presuming this is going to happen. We'll talk about it a little bit more now, but let's get right to it. Jeremy Cohen, you are now – actually, I was going to say you are now no longer the only redhead associated with the New York Knicks, but Benji has been here for a while. So now you three form a formidable trio, you guys and Donte DiVincenzo. How does that feel?
Feels great. I always love looking up to people, and it's nice. It's nice to see people that look like you achieve your dreams. So, listen, anyone with red hair would probably draw a comparison to me and Benji. Benji, if anyone knows what it's like, where it's like, oh, you look nothing like that person, but they're redheads, so you guys are like twins. So that's pretty much how it goes. But that's okay. I'm really happy about the signing. I got a beer right here. Nice.
Oh,
IPA.
yeah.
Cheers.
Yep.
And this was good. I think, as you said, we've talked about this plenty. The thing that's most of note is the full mid-level exception would have been around $53.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Donte DiVincenzo signed for what was reported as $50 million. That means that if you structured the deal based on ascending salary, 5%, instead of a cap hit of $12.4 million, it would likely shake out to 11.6. Why is that noteworthy? Because it seems like, hey, $800,000 or so doesn't seem like that much. My guess, every penny counts, as we've talked about. So I'm fascinated by if there is another move, because we've talked about, hey, maybe there's something minor. Maybe there is something major, because if the Knicks could have easily just given him the full mid-level exception and no one would have batted an eye. But the fact that he's making slightly less than that kind of insinuates that the money is closer.
Notable.
So as you do that, I'm going to crunch some quick numbers because I'm curious about a thought.
You do that. I'll go through a couple of things while you crunch some numbers. The first thing is we should just say flatly, and look, this is maybe not a universal opinion. It certainly is not an opinion that I think is very controversial. The Knicks got better today. Obi Toppin, we talked about him earlier. He's a really good player, but we also talked about him in the context of the same way we've been talking about him for 3 years, which is he is a player that the Knicks he's a round peg that for the last 3 years the Knicks have been trying to fit into something of a square hole. Now they get a guy who it's not even to say that he fits into what they're trying to do, because this is the sort of player that fits into what literally every NBA team is trying to do, because he is a guy who is he great at anything? No, although he actually is great at one thing. We'll get to it in a bit. But he's really good at all the important stuff that you need to be good at to stay on the court and play, 20, 25 minutes a night for pretty much any team in the league. Did they get a little smaller today? Yes. I'm talking for the brief moment as if this is the team that's going into the season. Yeah, they're a little smaller. They don't have a traditional backup four at the moment, but right now, as things stand, they will be slated to run out a backup unit of Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, because he plays with the subs, Josh Hart, and Donte DiVincenzo. And Hart, RJ would kind of split the backup 4 minutes. And so instead of Obi Toppin, a guy who's going to run to the corner and, kind of getting out in transition, you have in Donte DiVincenzo a guy who is, I won't call him a combo guard, but he's like one notch down from a combo guard. And that gets me to the one thing that if you're going to say that Donte DiVincenzo is excellent at something, it's this. He is as good a ball mover on the wing as there is, I think, in the league. And I'm not over-exaggerating when I say that. Last season, so for anybody who doesn't know, Cleaning the Glass, great site that we cite all the time, has this great stat, which is assist to usage ratio, which basically, given a player's usage, how many assists do they get? And it's not a stat that if you rank highly in, it's necessarily a compliment, because this is a stat that people who are high in this stat are typically guys who, like, they very clearly don't want to shoot, like your Ricky Rubios of the world and your Draymond Greens of the world. And yes, your Nikola Jokic's of the world, because Nikola Jokic, as we know, would rather pass than shoot. And it's, if you're high in this stat, typically speaking, it's kind of, it could actually be a little bit of a red flag, because it signals players who maybe they have a questionable shot, or they're not, they just, you know, they're gun shy when it comes to shooting it. Sure enough, guess who had the highest assist to usage ratio on the Knicks last season? Josh Hart. What does Josh Hart not always like to do? We shoot the ball. Donte DiVincenzo's assist to usage ratio was in the 99th percentile of the league last year. But here's the thing about DiVincenzo, and this is what's really exciting. For as good a ball mover as he is, and for as much as he can make plays at the wing position, again, kind of almost a borderline combo guard, he is deadly. Deadly's maybe a little bit stronger word. He's really, really good on catch and shoot threes. DiVincenzo last season had the 19th most catch and shoot threes in the entire league with 132, and he shot, even more importantly, shot 42.4% on those catch and shoot threes. Of the 18 guys ahead of him, only a handful shot a better percentage in terms of conversion rate of those threes on catch and shoots. The Knicks now have 3 of the top 23 players in the league last season when it comes to catch and shoot threes. Julius Randle was 23rd with 129, and Quentin Grimes was 16th with 15th with 140. So in a team, on a roster that is being built around the talents of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, what do you need? You need more reliable guys who, when they kick it out, they will fire and ideally make those shots. That is what Donte DiVincenzo does. And when you combine that with the ability to put the ball on the floor and make the next pass to the next guy and make the proper read and all those sorts of things, he's really kind of for a role player, he's a pretty dynamic offensive player. Good cutter. We talked about that already. So it should be a natural fit with Hartenstein. And then on defense, he's like, look, he's a smallish wing, but he's a guy who knows how to play defense. Good job with splash plays, getting steals, getting in passing lanes, smart defender, tries hard, all the things you want. To the point where, to get this guy on a 4-year, $50 million deal, given the defense and given the fact that, like, he's someone that for the entirety of his career, like, I'm thinking of Evan Fournier, who, by the way, they've paid a lot more than this. Evan Fournier, I think it was a bit of an adjustment for him because he was a guy that was used to having the ball in his hands. Donte DiVincenzo has not been that guy. He has always been kind of an afterthought in the groups that he's been out there with on offense, first in Milwaukee, then Golden State. And then just the last thing I'll say, and then I'll kick it back to you, Jeremy, is he is someone that if you take out the year that was kind of marred by injury when he got injured early in Milwaukee's championship run, if you just kind of take out from that point, really through the end of that next season, his 4th season, and you just look at his 1st year, 2nd year, 3rd year, and then last year, his 5th season in the NBA, it's really been a steady progression up for him almost across the board in terms of statistics. His 3-point shooting is more efficient. And I think he's entering the prime of his career. And it's a player that I think Knicks fans should be really excited to watch. We don't have to talk about the chemistry with Brunson and Hart. So, yeah, Knicks got better today, and I think everybody should be excited about the move.
So that was very well said. You encapsulated, I thought, DiVincenzo wonderfully in terms of the value he can add to this team. I was fascinated by the fact that the money was a little shorter. So I played around with the numbers, as I mentioned. This will either be prophetic or a really fun exercise that we get to do, and it could be a what if. So I moved Obi Toppin out. There's a reason I still believe the Knicks cleared his salary and didn't take money back. If you look at, okay, let's say it's 4 years, $50 million even, right? I know I mentioned it was like 11.6 million, but let's say what it was, right? $11,627,907. If you do that and you remove Obi, you obviously get lower than you would have normally. So in my mind, I'm thinking about the exercise that we did this past Sunday, where it was if you were to acquire another player, and it was a big time player where the math potentially shakes out and you can work it out, how would you? And we looked at 4 different names.
Yep.
And it was that Zion and Cat trades just don't make sense. And then there's the Levine factor, but Levine has cooled off. And then there's the Paul George idea, but then it was, okay, well, what if Paul George isn't being traded by the Clippers and all of that? I am sitting here thinking, okay, I actually buy the idea that the Knicks are really still going hard after Paul George. And I'll tell you why. If you do that, get Obi Toppin's salary out, DiVincenzo for that amount I just listed in, and you move RJ Barrett and Evan Fournier, and then you put Paul George back into the equation with his $45,640,000, $165 million contract. Okay. You have him, Randall, Brunson, Robinson, Hart, DiVincenzo at this new number, Hartenstein, Quickley, Grimes, Jeffries, Roby, Sims, McBride. I want to say that's 13 names, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 names. So you'd hit your amount in terms of the minimum quota.
Rosters. Yeah.
The difference in salary between what the Knicks would have team payroll wise and the luxury tax would be $85,916, which means that the one variable here that would be subject to change is if Donte DiVincenzo does not sign for 4 years and $50 million. He signs for 4 years and just under $50 million, which would give the Knicks the avenue to have a roster of 14 players, and they would still just barely squeeze under the luxury tax. So, look, I don't know what's in store with the Knicks. I don't know what they're going to do next. But when I consider about these pieces and how close, how razor thin that is, I can't help but feel like this might be what they're looking for. And look, if they don't do this and they go in a completely different direction, I certainly apologize. But then again, I don't apologize because I'm just listing exactly what that scenario would be and why it would make sense. And it goes back to the same conversation of if you're the Knicks and you're looking for a backup 4, but you don't have someone who's like Obi Toppin, but instead you have someone who's a 3, or I mean, could play the 3 and is also a 4. You see small ball minutes, but you don't need small ball minutes anymore because you have Paul George there because he can then suit up when he's healthy. They don't have enough size, but maybe that's something they can do to add in some other way, although the money's going to be tight. So all of this to say is, yeah, maybe this is an exercise in futility, but just like last year when Brunson signed and Hartenstein signed and the money did not make sense, something that was talked about was wrong. And we caught it because it just didn't pass the smell test. This is the same way. It's if it quacks like a duck and if it acts like a duck and if it walks like a duck, it starts to feel like a duck. And with everything going on with Dame and Harden and potentially even Paul George and all of this stuff, I can't help but feel like the Knicks are on the precipice of something larger, but talks have to go their way. The deal has to be right. The Clippers, of course, would have to be comfortable giving up Paul George. In this case, you have to imagine maybe they are if it involves James Harden going to the Clippers. Are there other moves that need to be made? Is it a large team deal? Is it multi-team deals? I can't tell you. All I know is this, it feels too exact for me to say I don't buy this whatsoever.
Jeremy, I have to reference this movie for the second time in 2 days. I have not felt this way since listening to Mona Lisa Vito talk about pos attraction on a 64 Buick Skylark. That's inspirational stuff.
Thank you.
Truly.
It's got to come true now, but.
Well, look, here's the thing. If we never hear word one, about Paul George, said Skylark, I'm not doing the accent. That doesn't mean that this wasn't done with that in mind. And like here, what do we know? We know the Knicks have already kicked the tires on Paul George, right? We know Paul George is their ties. We know from a basketball fit, you want to talk about, boy, making sense about, oh, wow, now all of a sudden the backup 4 position isn't small because guess who's played, the 4 at times in his career? And it's Paul George. It makes all sorts of sense. Now I'm thrown off my game. You've thrown me.
I'm sorry. Look, actually, no, I'm not going to
I'm the prosecution, man. I'm the prosecution.
Yeah. Listen, there's some other potential avenues they could go. For example, they've got Roby and Jeffrey's salaries. They could non-guarantee one and then fill that spot with, say, Jacob Toppin. They could upgrade him to from a two-way contract to a one-way. Right. His minimum salary would then be a bit smaller cap hit wise than someone like Jeffries or even Roby. And it would give the Knicks the opportunity to still have DiVincenzo at the exact amount that we think it would be reported as. But again, if we're talking about a difference of, what did I say? Was it was $85,916. I mean, come on, that's fraction. I mean, smaller than that.
Let's just say this, and then we'll turn it over for if anybody has anything left that they want to ask or say. Here's what there are only a few possibilities about how things are going to go forward in terms of the Knicks and their roster and their rotation for this season. And a couple caveats. Jalen Brunson is not getting traded. Julius Randle, barring, I don't even know. Julius Randle's probably not getting traded. The center position is its own entity. We don't even have to talk about the center position. Josh Hart just signed a new contract. Not getting traded. Donte DiVincenzo is here. He's not getting traded. That leaves three players: Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley. If the Knicks do not make another move, then that means that assuming that Tom Thibodeau continues to do what he has done his entire career, which is, and by the way, again, which most coaches do, far more coaches than not, play his stars at least 34 minutes a game, usually more like 35 and 36, right? If Brunson and Randle continue to get those minutes, which we assume that they will, that means the other guys, RJ, Quickley, Grimes, DiVincenzo, and Hart, are splitting. It essentially works out to like 25 minutes a pop, 25, 26 minutes a pop for those five guys. It still doesn't talk about not passing the smell test. It's still something about it still doesn't pass the smell test for me. I think
it's too small.
It's
just not enough minutes to go around.
It's just not. And I'm not saying they have a deal lined up. Could we see them taking it into the season? Absolutely. It's possible. But I, like you, would be mildly surprised if there was not something else coming, which, by the way, the name that we've not mentioned thus far on this live stream and who we know the Knicks are high on, I mean, we because they just picked up his contract, is Deuce McBride. So if there was to be, and I know the trade you just mentioned is not a 2-for-1, it's a 1-for-1. It's RJ going out and Paul George coming in. But
no, it is a 2-for-1.
Who else?
You're saying rotation-wise.
Rotation-wise,
it would be 1-for-1.
Okay.
Correct. Salary-wise, it'd be 2-for-1.
So this is where we disagree potentially. That's fine. If there were to be a 2-for-1 and a big-time player comes back, where now all of a sudden you may not have enough minutes unless you go to Deuce McBride. And there's your Deuce McBride to come in there and play essentially the same minutes that Obi Toppin is playing. I see you making a face. You probably don't agree with me here, but I'm just.
Well, that was also the beer coming up, but I'm good. We're fine. No, it was a mixture of both, but like 80% beer and 20% skepticism. Just.
It's fair skepticism because again, we're talking about they're turning over a big portion of their roster.
Well, here's the thing: if there is a world where you can get Paul George, that's great. But there's also an opportunity where the Knicks can have their cake and eat it too, which is that they don't remove Quickley from the situation, because the math is, I mean, look, if you're moving Quickley, Immanuel Quickley, not at a quick pace. If you're moving Immanuel Quickley, then what that would mean is the salary part, you have to move someone else, right? So like, are they really moving two players out of the rotation? Are they moving two of their best young players remaining off of the team, especially when Quickley's salary comes into play? Because here's how I would envision it. Let's say the Knicks did find an opportunity where they moved RJ Barrett and Evan Fournier for Paul George. We've seen everything about I mean, how many pundits have to talk about the idea of if it doesn't go well in Philly, that Embiid would be right there, that the Knicks would be interested, that would be the sort of move that they would make. Okay. If you're the Knicks and you're planning that, and I don't know why you wouldn't plan for that when you have Jalen Brunson and Paul George and probably even Julius Randle in the building, what does the math say about that? Okay, well, you'd need Mitchell Robinson. That just makes perfect sense. You would not need Mitchell Robinson moving forward if you have Joel Embiid, but you need to get up to Joel Embiid's salary, right? You need to find somewhere to do that. And that is where Immanuel Quickley comes into play. Because if you've done this, if you've done these machinations, it's not going to be Grimes because he's in the last year of his deal. It's not going to be Hart. It's not going to be DiVincenzo. There is no
talking
backup
about next summer.
Talking about next
clear.
summer, right?
Okay.
So if you overpay Immanuel Quickley, and by overpay, I don't mean, oh my God, I can't believe you got that much. It's no, we're going to be in the tax. We don't care. It's fine for us to do that because we're comfortable, because we just need to get the minimum salary that it gets us Joel Embiid. And that's, I think, the one thing. I'm getting ahead of myself here, obviously. But if the Knicks do get Paul George and it is RJ Barrett going out and Evan Fournier going out, I fully expect Immanuel Quickley to stay so he can be continuous soup for the type of trade. And the number you want to look for when Immanuel Quickley would inevitably be extended, whether it is now or whether it is in October at the deadline, you want to see if the amount that he is making after July 1st of next year, plus the amount that Mitchell Robinson is earning, is enough to facilitate a trade for Joel Embiid. That is how you have your cake and eat it too. And it's not moving Immanuel Quickley out right now. That would be very penny wise, pound foolish. So you keep him.
I think you're right.
And that's how you make the math work. And then you walk in with an even better team than you had before, because now you've gotten a legit top 10 player. You've gotten another player who's top 15 when healthy. You got Jalen Brunson. I can keep going down the list. And
no,
again,
but that's
we're not talking about a full year from now.
Game.
And But so that's where you go for it. And I just can't. It's just too clean. It's too fresh now that the numbers have changed with DiVincenzo's salary, and the fact that he's taking a pay cut gives me far more hope of that type of situation unfolding compared to 6 days ago when we did this, or 7 days ago when we did the same podcast.
Well, I'll tell you what, Knicks got a damn good little basketball team on their hands. Not a great team, maybe, but this team's gonna be good, and they're gonna come and they will be, I believe, consistent on a night-to-night basis this year, because they really are going to put out 9 guys on the floor every night, and it's not going to be any weak spots, and they are going to really bring an immense amount of versatility. And their one weak spot, maybe now a little small at the wing 4 position. You mitigate that because of kind of how your team plays, how your smaller players play. And there's a reason that they were sticking by Mitchell Robinson, because he kind of mitigates that in his own right, as does Isaiah Hartenstein, by the way, and as does Julius Randle. We should say that as well. Okay, Andrew, I don't know if we have anybody who has any comments. We've been taking all kinds of super chats the last couple of days. We get some more, I guess, though. Jay Wright,
wow, the one and only.
Future coach of the Knicks. Are the Knicks a better team today, minus Obi and plus Donte DiVincenzo? I think that they are. I think that they are, because if you're taking away what's Obi's best skill, you're losing the transition. And I'm not going to sit here and say that is meaningless, but my God, are you picking up some shooting, consistent shooting? You're picking up some defense. I don't know that I could sit here and be like, the loss of Obi's size on defense is going to be a negative, because I just don't feel that way, So I think, I think they're a better team.
Perfectly said.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay Wright. Dion Sumu, who's going to be our backup power forward? Josh Hart, unless they do something else. Tibbs has said he's comfortable with that. And Fred Katz talked about it a little bit last night. The way he sees it, that's not Tibbs paying lip service to, something. Tibbs would not ever play a lineup. Here's what we know about Tibbs. He would not give a lineup one single solitary second in a regular season game if he did not believe in it. And he gave a lineup with Josh Hart at the 4. you could argue the most important quarter of the Knicks regular season. If I'm talking about that Miami quarter where they kind of sealed I mean, in essence, they almost sealed a playoff berth that night, and he had, so clearly he believes in it. And yeah.
2 words. Paul George.
That's great. I love it. I love you. Brian Benjamin, I don't see IQ being here with this trade. So Jeremy just talked about it. I don't think we need to go over it again. I do think the money will be interesting. And can I just say one thing quick to kind of play devil's advocate to what you just said before? Is there a team that makes the Knicks an offer they can't refuse for Immanuel Quickley? I'm asking rhetorically. I don't know the answer to that question. I wonder if that would impact anything. It's all about opportunity cost, right? Like if you were depending on Quickley to be the salary filler that you need as that continuous soup, then there is a point in which you can't let him go. If he is the end goal, if he is the determining factor, if you're the Knicks, between potentially getting Joel Embiid and not getting Joel Embiid, because the way that the CBA is structured, it's harder to add salary, then he should not be traded. In fact, there's an argument that because of the money, he is untouchable. That is not Immanuel Quickley, the player, is untouchable. That is what the avenues he can give you makes him untouchable, because it gives you an exit strategy, whereas it wouldn't otherwise. If they were to deal RJ this summer, right? That's what you just said is contingent on them dealing RJ this summer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my pushback would be if someone made them a too good to be true offer for Quickley, then they just don't trade RJ.
Well, what's a too good to be true offer for Quickley?
I mean, we could sit here and go through fake trades, like a team giving them maybe some real draft equity.
But they have draft equity.
A salary. Well, no, it wouldn't be a salary because Quickley makes so little, unless it's packaged with Fournier. I mean, I don't know. I know they have a lot of draft equity. I know, but again, if you are thinking of the big guy in Philly, if they go that route, I mean, who the hell knows? Because I don't know what Daryl Moore's priorities would be at that point. But other teams that have traded stars have wanted more. Just give me the most picks you could get, So if there's an additional unprotected future pick that the Knicks could throw into it from whatever team, if there's one floating around out there that some team probably that a team possesses that isn't belonging to them, it's some other team's unprotected first that they have acquired in a trade. If someone was willing to put something like that on the table for Immanuel Quickley, that's all. I'm throwing it out there. I agree with you. It's unlikely.
Yeah, because look at how many 2-3s are on the roster right now. And if you strip Quickley away, then it's Brunson or it's Deuce, and Deuce does not have the requisite experience to get to that point. Also, again, if Deuce is still here, I would extend him. I stand by that. That also gives you more salary to play with. You then have Obi Toppin's $6.8 million traded player exception. You have money to play with. You're going to be in the tax, so you say screw it. But it really kind of comes down to what you have thought about and talked about and preached when people what?
No, the RJ thing.
No, I wasn't going to say the RJ thing, actually.
Oh, what were you going to say?
The thing that you have been the loudest about, and you've been correct on this, is Tom Thibodeau prefers a 9-man rotation.
Yeah.
And if you were to create a scenario where you're keeping Quickley here, then, and again, this all depends on, let's say it is for Paul George. You're looking at a starting lineup of Brunson, Grimes, George, Randall, Robinson. And then off the bench, you're going to have Quickley. You're going to have DiVincenzo. You're going to have Hart. And you're going to have Hartenstein. And you're probably going to flex with those 9 players. And the first player that goes down, unless it's, a big man, but maybe the Knicks do then decide to go small and Hart shifts up to the 4, and then you have Deuce in the frame. That's where you then can start to incorporate him more, because injuries are inevitable. These players are not going to be healthy. And if you're the Knicks, you're saying we can deal with playing small for the regular season because we know when George comes back, he'll be healthy and will be whole again, or at least as close to as possible. It's just, it gives you too many guards and wings and not enough point guards. And that's a problem.
If you keep Quickley.
If you keep Right, but
Yeah.
no, I'm saying if you remove Quickley,
If you remove
still
Quickley.
have your issue with a lot of 2s and 3s and players you can't really trust at the 1. And because I don't trust George's health at all, now you're looking at, because like George can run an offense, obviously. He's Paul George.
So this is where we differ. I think where we differ is I think part of the benefit of DiVincenzo. Again, I'm not calling DiVincenzo a point guard. I'm not even calling DiVincenzo a combo guard. I think with DiVincenzo, let's just say for argument's sake, you removed Quickley from the equation. I bet you they would feel comfortable running backup units where essentially it's Deuce, it's DiVincenzo. In this scenario that I'm painting, it's RJ, Hart, and Hartenstein. There's a lot of playmaking in that, even if there isn't
but there's a crap amount of shooting there. Like you're putting RJ Hartenstein and RJ Hart and Hartenstein together.
There's not enough shooting on that.
No, like it's hard for us to talk about Obi leaving the rotation altogether because he was traded, and then the replacement is RJ Hartenstein. That's shrinking the floor, maybe arguably to an even lesser extent.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. That's fair. Look, let's see what happens. We're probably getting ahead of ourselves here.
We're definitely getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah.
Sergio Esquivel, signing your star players' friends is not ideal. Donte DiVincenzo could be a very good player, but the fact that the last 2 signings have been to reunite Jalen Brunson with his friends just itched me the wrong way. Sergio, I mean no offense when I say this. If Jalen Brunson walked into Leon Rose's office and demanded that they hire his barber tomorrow to replace Jericho Sims as their 3rd-string center, I would go hand him a blank check with the Knicks logo on top to that Brunson himself could make out to the barber. That's how important he is to this organization. He's the most important person in the organization. But for what it's worth, I don't think this has maybe I won't say one iota. Like, the reason Donte DiVincenzo is like buddies with Brunson is because they played together at Villanova. The reason why he's here is because Villanova players, by and large, and it's especially true with these 3 guys, espouse precisely the sorts of qualities that this organization has purported to be about when it comes to the players that they roster since the day Leon Rose took over, and more importantly, since the day Tom Thibodeau got hired as head coach. That's why Donte DiVincenzo is here. The friendship is a nice bonus. I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, if we're keeping it a buck, the Knicks happen to be acquiring players from Villanova who are friends with Jalen Brunson, who are also really good players. They're quality players. Like, that can't be lost. Yeah. I just there's a fine line between connections and nepotism. And to me, nepotism often insinuates that someone is not capable of doing the job. And that's how they get there. Whereas the connections certainly help that factor. And in a world, especially the basketball world, where there are so many connections and their agencies and all these other affiliations, you want to stick with the guys who are both good and who you can get in the door. And right now, because of Josh Hart sacrificing at least $6 million probably this year, maybe 5, the Knicks were able to sign Donte DiVincenzo. And because of Donte DiVincenzo taking potentially a slight pay cut, depending on what happens, there's a chance the Knicks could make another move that gets them even better than that. So the fact that the Knicks happen to have these players who are cooperating because they're friends and also good and can lead to other better things potentially down the line, I have zero complaints about that. Yeah. It'd be different if they were ass, but they're not.
I'm curious what Sergio thinks about Jacob Toppin getting signed to a 2-way. Danny Gardner, first time, long time, John. As a former Redhead and longtime Donte fan, I love the move. Kind of into running this team back and seeing what we could do. Yeah, I can't wait to see this team play basketball. Even if they don't make any other moves, I can't wait to see them play basketball. They're gonna be good. They
already were good. That's the beauty of it.
They were good, but just think about, you want to talk about how far we've come. I mean, to say nothing of how far we've come from like the 2019-20 season when you had a team that just made absolutely no sense. Think about how far we've come since just the beginning of last year, where, they were still figuring out. It's like Derrick Rose is still playing and Evan Fournier is still playing and like Cam Reddish is playing. And it's, they have a really, really, really solid foundation here as far as how they want to go out, how they want to play, how they're able to play. They're going to be a tough team to guard, and they're going to be a tough team to play against. Thanks, Danny. Noah, no, it's not Noah Chestnut. The Blazers just waived Trendon Watford. You think he could be a potential Obi replacement? A couple people have asked about Trendon Watford today. I mean, he would be. So look, they could waive Roby. They could waive what's Jeffries, right? They could sign Watford to the minimum. Maybe a little higher than the minimum. Actually, no, they can't sign him to higher than the minimum. Excuse me. They can only sign him to the minimum. Unless they sign him to the biannual, right? And I don't.
Are they going to go on the tax for Watford?
They wouldn't necessarily. If they give him the whole biannual, they could give him a portion of the biannual too.
Sure,
right?
But again, who's giving him more than a minimum salary?
You're right. We talked about this yesterday. To me though, if they went outside Trendon Watford, that would only embolden my thinking that there's something else coming. Because again, they're not playing more than 9 guys.
Sure, but here's the main thing as well with Watford. He takes an absurdly low volume of threes. Absurdly low.
Less than one a game last year, I believe.
Right. So that's, and again, even if you look at the per 36, it's not going to be a steep number. So it goes back to the other factor of if you are moving Obi partly because of the fact that you want better spacing at the 4 and you get Watford in the door, he's not going to up his frequency to such a point where he's also making an impact. I understand that he hit 39% from 3, but it's misleading because the volume was just so bare bones that doesn't really show anything.
He doesn't really make sense with this. You know who wishes probably they had Trendon Watford right now? It's Portland.
Yeah, potentially.
We don't have to talk about the Blazers. Shout out to Blazers fans. Just a great bunch. Anthony Rini, help me understand the excitement behind the signing. Is he not just a worse version of Quickley on a team that still employs Quickley? Do we beat Miami last year with Donte DiVincenzo? To me, these are just all of the wrong questions. I mean, I'm sorry, Anthony, but it's just binary thinking. You had a chance to add a incredibly versatile player that, again, could translate to any team in the league because of the skill set that he brings. And you had a chance to do it at a number. Forget about the number being fair, which it is, but it is a tool at your disposal. The mid-level exception. It's not quite use it or lose it because and we don't have to sit here and talk about, future salary cap, this and that and the other thing. But like, in a sense, it is use it or lose it. So it's like, here, do you want Donte DiVincenzo with this number or not? You want him. You want him 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. And if that means that there is some overlap at the time being, you deal with it and you figure it out later. All that does is give you more ammo to make your team better. And oh, by the way, if there is one position in the league where you can't have enough of, it's two-way wings who could shoot, and put the ball on the floor and are smart basketball players and like try hard. It's like every team wants these guys, which is why I'm not shocked we got him at the mid-level, but I think there was a real market for him. I think there was a lot of teams, and I think the fact that it got around that he was probably always coming to New York is maybe partially why some of these other teams that were rumored to be in contention for him, we saw them make signings yesterday that essentially took them out of the DiVincenzo running. You think that was an accident? Like, this guy's a good player. And I'm not going to say anything about the Quickley part. I think you're going to like watching him. I'll just say that.
He's also, it's not fair to, and again, I don't mean this as disrespect, Anthony. It's more, if you have him kind of like, is he the person who's the difference between the Knicks winning the series against the Heat and not? DiVincenzo did not shoot particularly well, right, in the playoffs, if memory serves.
He didn't, but his for as poorly as he shot in the playoffs, his effective field goal percentage was like still pretty good.
Sure, he would have helped, I would imagine, but then it's imagine. It doesn't. He's not the needle mover. I think it's more just he gives you the flexibility, especially as the Knicks keep building. Because the one thing that, like, look at this, the Suns, prime example. They walked in the door with 3 elite players, right? All in various degrees of elite. And what was their depth? It was DeAndre Ayton, whose value was so low that they couldn't move him. It was Cameron Payne, and it was a bunch of minimum salary guys that they had to sign. I mean, they let Jock Landale go. And that's another imperative, by the way. Jock my style. I like that one. That's the one I'm going to go with. You get Jock Landale going to Houston. You're losing some of your good depth, your cash strap, because it's really hard for you to add salary. the smartest thing for the Knicks to keep doing, because they do not have a true, legitimate, elite MVP type player, is to keep adding depth, keep adding good depth, trade from your depth, and then keep working that way. So you keep going towards the top. And you basically go from the ground up in terms of collect the players who are towards the bottom of the rotation, and then go for the middle players. And then eventually you wind up with a really winning talent. So that's kind of where it's at. I don't see as DiVincenzo as a solution. I see him as someone who gives you added depth when you are really going to need it moving forward, and adding salary becomes harder and harder.
And you're not getting players who make the difference in a second round playoff series for $12 million. And by the way, for what it's worth, I'm not saying Donte DiVincenzo is a better player than Immanuel Quickley, but in terms of if we're looking at guys who could juice this offense a little bit and the things that are important specifically to juice the Knicks offense, Immanuel Quickley last season had an assist percentage of 17.7. Donte DiVincenzo last season had an assist percentage of 17.6. Donte DiVincenzo or Immanuel Quickley last season in 81 games hit 96 catch and shoot threes for a conversion rate of 39%. And I already said that Donte DiVincenzo hit a ton of catch and shoot threes. With the Warriors last year, 132 catch and shoot threes in 72 games for a conversion rate of 42.5%. So, like, again, you're looking for guys that you can play with Jalen Brunson and can play with Julius Randle. And what do you want around those guys? Guys to keep the offense moving. And when they get the ball behind the arc, fire, make. That's what this guy does. It's a good player. Thanks, Anthony. Busy. The dedication of the KFS staff is unmatched. Thank you for going live and covering everything Knicks as it happens. I'm shocked that Busy there's no Tibbs criticism here. There's nothing. It's just positivity from Busy. I love you.
Well, it's appreciated.
It is appreciated.
That's what we're here
for. Thank you. And we're honored to have the role that we do, and for that people know to come here. And yeah. Kevin Danishevsky, I'm looking at the Embiid tweet is making some waves. Hey yo, good ad. Like the culture the Knicks are building. I wonder if we see more of Randle with the backup unit now to prevent RJ Hart minutes. I like where Kevin's head is at. So last season, usually Randle plays the entire fourth quarter. Oh, sorry, Andrew. I have to interrupt my response to Kevin and say what Andrew's telling me to say what the Embiid tweet was. So Joel Embiid tweeted his first tweet of the summer. Apparently, it's basketball related. He just tweeted The Watcher. So he's watching. What is Joel Embiid watching? I don't know. Maybe he's watching The Watcher on Netflix. I've never seen an episode of that show.
Andrew's saying from What If?
Yes, The Watcher from What If. He's the bald guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's The Witcher? Oh, I'm confusing The Witcher and The
Witcher, yes.
Okay, that's a bad job by me.
Apology, everybody, for my camera and my mic. The Witcher is the show on Netflix. Yes. The Watcher is the storyteller on What If that you're thinking of. That's what I took from Embiid's tweet, that he's watching over all of this and taking notes.
Or maybe he just likes the Marvel's What If.
Or that could be it, too, and just decided on the day that Twitter broke that he was just going to send out a tweet. So who knows?
You never know. Last season, Randle would play usually the entire fourth quarter. That's interesting. If they essentially have Brunson being the one who plays the entire fourth quarter, you pull Randle early. I guess what does that accomplish? It gives you more minutes with Randle and Hart. So
let's take a step back. Yes, potentially, but I like to think of when Randle came back for the Miami series. Or actually, it's probably the Cleveland. It might have been. It was Cleveland when he was building up his endurance, and Tibbs took him out with like 3 or 4 minutes to go in the first quarter, and then had Obi come in, and then subbed Randle back early in the second quarter, and I think that's what caught the Cavs off guard. I'd like to see that sort of thing where that's when you bring Hart into the picture. But you could also move RJ out, and then you could sub RJ back in. Like there are a lot of different permutations they could go about with this. But yes, I liked what we saw in terms of Randall with the backup unit in the playoffs, even though it was brand new. So I like where Kevin's head is at here.
Yep, it's fine. Kevin, another one, or alternatively, Grimes at the 3, Hart at the 4 with the subs. You know what I like and what I want to see more of, and this is tough with RJ running backup units, but like the notion of Grimes, DiVincenzo, and Hart, those 3 guys, that's exciting to me. I like that thought. I like them with Quickley. I like them with Deuce. Because, I mean, yeah, Grimes could shoot. DiVincenzo could shoot. Hart, not as much. He can shoot, but he's more hesitant. And then those guys with Hartenstein, that's just a fun grouping, that trio. I wonder how much we'll get to see it.
As Andrew said in the comments, I like them with Paul George.
I like them with Paul George, too.
Yeah.
Sam Garcia, Torrey Craig with the biannual to be a backup 4. Again, you're first of all, I think Torrey Craig has kind of elevated himself above 13 minutes a game behind Julius Randle. Torrey Craig's a good player. And I wonder if he's like going to be the best player that gets squeezed out of significant dollars in free agency. I'm a little surprised he hasn't signed yet. They're not going to add another player to this rotation. They're just not going to do it. It's just be ready, guys. They're not going to a 10-man rotation. It's just not happening. Not with the guys they have here. If they end up going to a 10-man rotation next season, I could promise you there will be significant changes to the existing roster between now and the opening of the season.
I would agree.
Thanks, Sam. Frank Sound, they better not F up Q-Dog for Humpty Dante. I love Humpty Dante. That's a great nickname. Q-Dog. I don't think Q-Dog's. I'm assuming you're talking about Quentin Richardson or Quentin Richardson. Jesus Christ. Quentin Grimes. Show my age there. I think Quentin Grimes is still a big part of their plans. I think they're really high on Quentin Grimes, and I like the fact that Tibbs went. Look, we don't have to go revisit it. He fucked up at the time. It turned out it was the wrong move, Tibbs, to go with Hart in the starting lineup and not Grimes, even though there was logic to it. The fact that he went back to Grimes, that told me something about their faith, his faith in particular, in Quentin Grimes. And I know Quentin Grimes didn't have great playoffs, but I think he's going to be fine. He's a worker.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Jordo. Let's see if we can get out of here in under an hour. Jordo 1334. Does it make sense to hold Fournier's expiring to make a run at a possible free agent?
No, there's no cap space for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we're not going to. Or IQ extension next year. Hartenstein technically expiring as well. Hart is going to be extended. You could put that in pen. Hartenstein is expiring, and they will have Sims on another year if they want. I believe that's a team option. So that's a way to shave some money. But no, they're gonna move on from Fournier. It's just a matter of how. We'll see. Thanks, Jordo. Juanon, the prophet Robert Randolph says one more trade is coming. I hope you boys have a third emergency live stream in you. I kid, or do I? I mean, if they make another trade, we're going to be talking about it. I don't know what else to say. Robert Randolph, the prophet, man. That's a scary thought. Did you see? I don't want to get into this.
I haven't seen much Twitter because Elon Musk decided to run his own product into the fucking ground. So no, I didn't even see the tweet that you had with my image because someone had to send it to me because I had exceeded whatever the fuck my rate limit is. Like this is the early 2000s and there's a minutes plan. Like just the stupidity of this.
What would be even better if
he ruined Christmas. He ruined Christmas, John. This is what today would have been beautiful.
If when you logged on Twitter today, you heard somehow, even if your phone was on silent, you heard like the old dial tone from when you used to have to log on to like AOL with the dial-up connection. That would have been funny.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Drew P. PG is staying and other teams would outbid us for OG. I don't know about that. Feels like this is the roster. It might be. We'll see. Who would Leon prefer if both asked out next year? Giannis or Embiid? Whoa! That's a question. Who would Leon prefer? Same cost? I mean, I would assume Giannis. Right? Is this a trick question? Right?
I mean, I would assume it as well, but with that being said, you have CAA. You have a more precarious situation in Philly. Giannis, I would imagine he still signs the Supermax when eligible.
I'll believe Giannis really gets out there. Like is a like there's a Giannis trade sweepstakes. I'll believe that when I see it. Because if you're the Bucks and just like, man, fold your franchise. If you lose Kareem, I don't care if it's 50 years apart. If you lose Kareem and Giannis in the same like lifetime, no, just stop. Thanks, Drew. JS, I'm proud to be a Knicks fan today. That's great. Are you proud to be a Knicks fan today? Yeah. That's great.
Wow. I can't believe she's talking. Like, where does the time go?
I don't know. I really don't know. James Choi, giddy up. Let's go New York Wildcats. Someone's got to make that shirt. We are a better team. Whatever. We are a better team today than we were yesterday. Love Obi, but this is good for him. It is good for him. Nobody's disagreeing about that. Let him own his next deal. Love Donte DiVincenzo. If no other moves closes. Shout out to Substack. Yes, shout out to Substack. The Substack community's been on fire today. Oh my goodness, now I got the other one. No other moves. Who closes?
It's the same.
I was going to say
nothing changes.
Yeah.
At least unless RJ is able to take the leap that is greater than what Josh Hart's baseline is, from a closing perspective, because of what they each bring and how, like, that's where it goes. But as of right now, I would imagine it's Tibbs looking at Brunson, one of Quickley and Grimes, Hart, Randall, and Robinson, or Hart and Stein, depending on matchups, foul trouble, etc.
I'll give you a hot take. I think of every other than Jalen and Julius, to me, the safest bet on the roster that's going to close games is Josh Hart. And I think if RJ takes steps this year, maybe he gets closes over quickly. That's a hot take. Yeah, set that up. Thanks, James. D. Eubanks. Is this Drew Eubanks, who just signed with the Suns? Are Donte DiVincenzo and Quentin Grimes a bit redundant? Who starts? Grimes is going to keep starting, but again, there's no such thing as redundancy when you're talking about this sort of position. This is, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but everybody wants these guys. If you could shoot, you could defend, you can move with the ball. Like, you're always going to be in demand.
Redundancy is also, like, this isn't the same redundancy as Randall and Obi. These are two players who can very easily play next to each other, in addition to one playing ahead of the other.
Look, are they both a little small? Yes, they're both a little small. That absolutely matters. You could only have so many small-ish wings on your roster, but you could definitely have two of them. And look, the Clippers tried to assemble their entire team composed of like players of this ilk. Again, you want them to be a little bit bigger, ideally, but no such thing as too many of these guys. Thanks, D. Christopher Davis. So we got to find a way to get Mikal Bridges, right? I enjoyed Josh Hart dipping his toe in the tampering waters earlier tonight. Tweeted out to Mikal, like, hit me up. You want to get a little nuts?
You know what I'm going to say.
What?
You know exactly what I'm going to say.
Say it.
1984. I'm sorry, 1983. 1980, right?
Year of my birth.
Yes, 1983.
Last time the Knicks and Nets have made a trade, Josh Hart. Mikal Bridges has 3 years left. 3? Yeah, 3. 3 years left on his extension. He is, barring something crazy, he is not, unless the CBA the CBA can't get changed again because it will run through at least for 3 more years. He is not extending off of his current contract. It is there's zero financial incentive for him to do so. Not going to happen. So there are 3 years until he is going to hit unrestricted free agency. That's interesting to me. That's all. That's interesting to me.
That's interesting to me, but not from the Knicks' perspective. So let me get this straight.
I agree.
The Brooklyn Nets.
I'm not going to push back on this.
Like 4 first-round picks.
I know.
For Mikal Bridges.
And they're going to trade.
Are now going to turn around and go to their crosstown rival and deal him as the Knicks are on the ascending track and could eventually assemble a team that is championship caliber worthy. And the Nets have to reckon with the fact that they gave Bridges, even if it's for an overpay, to the Knicks as they are contending in their own city. I
just wonder if the Nets. I looked, and the Nets, maybe the Nets trade for Damian Lillard to win the championship next year. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? But if the Nets are middling their way along for the next 2 years, GMAC says "ew" in the chat. If the Nets are like just kind of meandering for 2 years, and Mikal is a year away from free agency, kind of like the OG Anunoby situation right now. Listen, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I love that you're a dreamer.
I am a dreamer,
but this one is this doesn't feel like it.
Man,
I'm sorry,
Mikal Bridges. I know, it's fine. Richard Davis. Anyone other than PG that fits this squad as well? From a basketball perspective, I'm not sure. Other than Mikal Bridges, no. Realistic targets. I don't think so.
Again, like Tobias Harris, but you're going to want something else back because if you're moving RJ. You're valuing the upside of a 23-year-old on 4 years of team control. Philly's not going to necessarily want RJ. I mean, maybe, but he doesn't seem to fit Morey Ball. Point being, it's like, and that to me doesn't feel like a realistic scenario. So,
does Philly take that deal? I know the math doesn't work, but Leon calls him tomorrow. RJ for Tobias, straight up.
Tobias, RJ and Fournier. I think they would look at it as a D'Angelo Russell Warriors type situation, which is Kevin Durant's leaving. D'Lo is the best we can get in terms of a player and asset back. We can
so RJ's D'Lo in this case.
Well, yeah, and I don't mean that as disrespect. I mean that from a contract perspective. Taking a young player, moving them when you can, getting something else back, going in that sense.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks, Richard. Jaws so focused. Just joined the party. So sorry if already answered. But how did the Knicks solve one of their biggest problems last season in lack of size? Was that one of their biggest problems last season? In what sense? I mean,
I don't think. Yeah,
they were. So the Knicks were a bad defensive rebounding team for much of the year. But Obi's not a good defensive rebounder. I'm not saying DiVincenzo's great. I think that is. I don't know. It
wasn't the size; it was the spacing.
I'm talking about specifically defensive rebounding.
I know you are, but I'm saying I don't feel that the size was the issue.
No, I don't feel like a lack of size was their issue last year. Yeah, I agree with that. No, I think they had defensive rebounding issues, but I'm not sure I attribute that. Like, RJ's as big as anyone in the league at his position, and like was there last year. He's still on the team. I don't know. I think that's a bit of a. But
I'll tell you this: I'd say arguably the number one issue plaguing the Knicks defense was the lack of deflections because they were 30th in deflections.
And DiVincenzo's great at that.
But you know who else was pretty great at that last year?
Paul George.
Yep. If I'm looking at players who played at least 50 games last season, you got Van Vliet, number 1, OG Anunoby, number 2, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, number 3, Paul George, number 4.
I like how you just kind of skip past OG Anunoby there.
No, well, no, I mentioned his name. I mean, I said 50 play. You know,
OG,
I don't
OG.
think Jacob Gilliard, all due respect to him and his one game played for the Grizzlies, is up there. But
I think they're. You know what a big issue for them also was, and it was talked about a lot at the time. They were a really poor team in terms of transition defense. I think DiVincenzo will help there too. Again, he's just another smart ball player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Dom Cappuccini. I have a not so smart friend who's comparing this to the Evan deal and is threatening to stop being a Knicks fan again. Tell him sayonara. What can I say about Donte to win him over? LOL. Keep on trooping for us, guys. I don't. I mean, I've lost the ability to try to convince people these sorts of things long ago. Here's what I would say. They paid Evan Fournier in terms of if you factor in the rise in the cap, Evan Fournier in like 2023 equivalent dollars, they gave him how many, 19 million a year? Whereabouts, right? So they're paying him about 50% more per year. The Fournier contract was about 50% more per year than DiVincenzo, so a much more expensive player. And more to the point, I think Evan Fournier, throughout his career before he came here, was always kind of an up and down player and always had highs and lows and was always let's say, an iffy defensive player. And also it was a really tricky fit coming here and adapting to a role that he had never really embraced before. And he was open about the fact that, like, Tom Thibodeau was like, I need you to do more of this, even though this is, shooting out of a phone booth, really. And so he was a really frustrating player. By the way, though, he was also really good offense. He's been a really good offensive player when he got consistent playing time for the Knicks. The issue was really in terms of kind of the lapses on the defensive end, and that's the biggest difference. Donte DiVincenzo was a smart, engaged, hardworking defender. Fournier is just, that's not his strong suit. And I think the biggest difference between the two of them is on the defensive end. Fournier could create shots that Donte DiVincenzo is never going to dream of taking. That's why he got paid the money he got, but that's not really what this team needed. They need more of a guy who's like a scaled down version, but is more even keeled across the board. That's why you're going to like Donte DiVincenzo, I think.
A lot of it, yes. The pull-up shooting, as you just mentioned, was huge for Fournier. That's not what DiVincenzo's game is predicated on. That's more the catch and shoot. But you get the defensive factor in there. Look, if your friend wants to stop being a Knicks fan because Donte DiVincenzo is the straw that breaks the camel's back, I think there are deeper-rooted issues with the fandom.
So
but that's for your friend to determine, and I wish them well. Whether they are a Knicks fan or not, moving forward, I wish them well.
Between your friend and his God. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you as always. Vasilas Papas, sad day for me. Kings took EuroLeague's MVP from my team. Oh, I'm sorry. Sasha Vezenkov. They got a stud. Wish the Knicks had better international scouting. Talent level here is better than ever. Go Olympiacos. Go Knicks. Okay, well, I'm sorry. He's not coming over. I didn't the Kings have his rights or something? Because
I believe they did, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. And they drafted Rokas. Rokas has been pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if he ever comes over. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, one step at a time. But you know my opinion on where
I know. Stands. Turnpike Mike, RJ, and 2 unprotected picks to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges. Don't think the Nets are gonna go for that one. It's my gut feeling. 2 protected picks. Excuse me. I misread that. Yeah, the Nets are definitely not going to go for RJ 2 protected picks. I would like that call to be made on a recorded line, and I would like to hear Sean Marks' response when whoever, Gerson Rosas or someone proposes that trade.
Yeah, I would hope that Leon's able to finish that sentence before there's laughter. I get it, but that that is the type of offer, or it's like if someone else was like, hey, what if the Knicks gave up Jalen Brunson for a good young player, and picks that just aren't worth a ton. Like we would be saying no chance. Absolutely not.
It's tough because again, he's not going to extend off the number. So it's a great contract, but it's also kind of a tough contract because you're boxing yourself into 3 years, and then you're going to have unrestricted free agency. It's a long-winded way of saying I think there's an argument that Mikal Bridges is certainly one of the 20 best trade assets in the league. I don't know if I'd go higher than that. I think he's in the top 20, though. He's really good. Thanks, Turnpike Mike. Javier Montalvo. We started the offseason needing a taller shooting wing, and now we got another shooting guard and down Obi. Honestly, aren't we still an incomplete squad? I mean, if your definition of a complete squad is a team that is a contender, then yeah, they're still incomplete for sure. I don't know that there was a path for them to get to being a complete squad if that's your definition, a realistic one this summer. So yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day. They think back to what this front office inherited 3 years ago. Come a long way in building this thing. Thanks, Javier. Marlon Small, what's going on, Marlon? Do you think getting Donte at 4 years, $50 million, Brunson 4 years, 104, gives the Knicks a range to pay Immanuel Quickley in? He has to outplay Donte to be paid more. I don't know
than Donte. Let's be upfront. He will earn much more than Donte DiVincenzo.
Yes, he will. I want to ask you a question. I'm going to use this question to ask you a question. Do you think Quickley gets extended this summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I cannot shake the continuous soup idea where the Knicks would rather just give him the money and get to the matching salary minimum, and they're happy. And that sucks as someone whose second favorite player on this team is Quickley and Brunson. But in a stars league, you look at the stars and you have to keep your options open. And even if that doesn't wind up happening, you have set yourself in position where it's, if we needed to do this for someone else, we still have that avenue.
Yep. Okay. Alex Krampus. Hey, guys. Thanks for the around-the-clock coverage. You're welcome. Have you guys heard anything about LaVine Knicks today? So a couple fan posts saying it's a sure thing, but Twitter sucks and haven't seen much else. The only thing I saw, and I kind of ashamed that I followed this Twitter account, but I did, if I'm just full disclosure. This anonymous something or other person. Maybe Andrew knows the name. I don't know. I'll scroll really quick, see if I can find it.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Some person who claims to know things and has gotten some stuff right, so he got some attention. The amateur NBA analyst. I feel bad that I'm giving this person I can't even see his tweets because my rate limit has exceeded. That's a shame. But he tweeted something along the lines of something's happened on the LaVine front, not with the Knicks, but just in general. I don't know.
Well, there's been some sort of conversation about the idea of LaVine, if he is moved, going to Philly. And that sort of move here's the real situation right now. There is Damian Lillard, James Harden, potentially Zach LaVine, potentially Paul George, and there are 5 or 6 teams out there that are all actively involved, and probably closer to 7. So there's a lot to parse out here, and I think the major question is which domino falls first. I wonder if the first domino is going to be Harden. I still would imagine he goes to the Clippers. I still wonder how much equity the Clippers have in terms of acquiring James Harden. But a lot can change. Damian Lillard now on the market. Maybe he was on the market before. It was only really just out there that it's publicly released. It could have been after Scoot was drafted. He was like, I'm out. But they kept it in-house. And now potentially here we are. It seems like the Heat are trying to move quickly. And you hear about Brooklyn Nets as a Tyler Hero option potentially too.
Or other teams. Yeah.
So there are just 3 at least stars that could be on the move. And that's it. Just takes one to fall. We got the Houston issue out of the way. So Houston's pretty much done. You move on to the next one and you see what happens from there. And I'm sure it's going to be chaos within the next few days. It would not shock me in the slightest, but it seems like LaVine to the Knicks is dead, and that's fine based on the size in a lot of ways, right? Like if you have DiVincenzo here, obviously it's the same. It's kind of the same thing to me, where if you moved RJ and Fournier out and you got Levine in, cool. You don't have the size advantage, and you still have a ton of players who need minutes at the 2-3.
Yep.
So it just doesn't. I don't think it computes.
I'd be surprised, Alex, but we'll see. TK, is this Hushu? Yeah, I think it is. Somebody tells me the Knicks aren't quite done. Something tells the two of us that the Knicks aren't quite done either. We'll see. Javier Montalvo, what a cutie. Oh, I'm assuming you're not referring to me and Jeremy, but my youngest too was swept away by my wife. My God, it's 9:30. Jesus Christmas. I hope at least one of my children is asleep. But thank you, Javier. ML Nair. Jeremy, I hope you're right. What does the Clipper roster look like now after the signings? Does it make sense for them to make a trade with the Knicks? I've lost track of where they're at. I know they've made a nice move today. They picked up KJ Martin for 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Russ is back. I don't know. It seems like they still want to keep Paul George, but I don't know.
I'm not sure. It really is what salary, because they can send other salary to get James Harden. They've got Batum, they've got Mann, they've got Covington, they've got Morris, but most of those guys are not the best options that you would want back. They have picks that are later that could be beneficial for sure, but I don't know. It just, I guess if you're the Clippers in terms of the roster, if you do get Harden, what you put around him, is it Fournier? Is RJ? How are these players moving? It's just a lot to parse through, and it kind of just going to take one domino to fall before we can get to the other stuff.
Yeah. No, well said. Thanks, ML. Ed Flood, should we be worried about the Heat getting Dame? I am. I think that's a great fit.
Yeah, of course, but I'd say focus inward.
Andrew has a question that he just texted us. Why re-sign Russ if Harden is in the cards? I think that's a great question. I mean, Russ could still be your sixth man, right? Even if you bring in Harden. They got him at a fair number, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess implicit here is like, why couldn't they have waited until the Harden situation shook out and then gone after Russ? Who knows? Maybe someone else wanted Russ. I don't think so. I think Russ was always wanted to go back there and was kind of destined to go back there. But it's a fair question. Like if they get Harden, I think they still would want Russ. But that's the best answer I got. Jake Seelig, what's going on, Jake? Thanks so much for the very generous contribution. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
What's up, Jonathan Jeremy? Really like the DiVincenzo signing. Gives the Knicks some much needed shooting and another ball handler. Only question is, what do we do at the backup power forward spot? Maybe someone like Torrey Craig. Again, I think Torrey Craig, too good for a backup 4 spot to be playing 12 minutes a night. B, they're not running a 10-man rotation. And yeah, that's all I got. They're going to, if they don't do anything else, I think they're going to trust Hart with that spot to play those minutes at the backup 4.
Yeah. And again, we've talked about Craig and the fact that he doesn't, there's good reason for why he might stay in Phoenix. They can pay him more.
And I'm shocked that hasn't been, I mean, the only reason I can think of that hasn't been, and again, for Craig he'd have to be on the biannual, which if the Knicks use the full biannual, as Jeremy said before, it takes the Knicks into the tax. The Knicks are not going to go into the tax for Torrey Craig. And if he's coming here for whatever would amount to $3 million, for one, I don't know that the Knicks want to skirt the tax, get that close to the tax. But I have to think the reason he hasn't signed in Phoenix yet is he thinks that there's an opportunity for him to sign for more money elsewhere. And maybe he's just waiting on that offer. The Knicks cannot give him a lot of money. So, Cynic, speak a little on July 7th and who to expect.
July 7th is really just the cat date that he's eligible to be traded.
Oh, yeah.
That's really it.
I don't expect teams could agree to trade those players now. So we could hear about it now, and then it just becomes official July 7th. So it's not really a date I have circled on my calendar. Jasso Focus, per the last chat, issues against tall, lengthy teams. Yeah.
Like the Raptors. Knicks had fits with the Raptors in the regular season.
I think that had more to do with the Raptors on defense bothering, like, because the Knicks, we know how they like to play on offense. And if you're a long, rangy team who, like, gets in passing lanes and is all up in your shit, like, that's not, like, Jalen Brunson doesn't want to deal with that. Julius Randle doesn't even want to really deal with that. You know, RJ, I mean, think about why the Knicks would always lose to the Raptors. They turn the ball over 1,000,000 times because what do the Knicks do? They drive. What do the Raptors do? They get their hands on the ball when you're driving, and they turn it into turnovers and turn it into points. Like, that is just like, you know what's a solution to that? Shoot the ball more. Like, when you have an open three, shoot the open three. That's a good solution to that. And they got another shooter today. So, yeah. Thanks, Joe. That's the thing, is like the Knicks, like they always just inside. Need another guy who could keep you honest from outside. Jean-Marc, Jeremy, what is our cap benefit if we Jesus Christ, I almost fell off my chair. If we stretch Fournier for 4 years.
So stretching Fournier would be 3 years because it would be the 1 year remaining plus 2, which is the formula for it. But you'd be taking the salary that's owed to him and it's dividing it by 3. So in this case, it'd be like a dead cap hit of a little over $6 million a year. There is no benefit. This is like doing the same thing to Joakim Noah, but where money is even more of a concern because the Knicks beforehand were just dealing with cap space, and now they're dealing with luxury taxes and players actually needing to be paid for the first time compared to more so beforehand. They could stomach it before. They shouldn't have done it. They never should have done it. The Knicks won't do it. They shouldn't do it. It's frozen. It's dead money. There's no point for the Knicks to go about this route. And I think Brock Aller, for example, would rather give up assets than commit to hamstringing himself 3 years down the line.
I was about to say, I think Brock Aller would rather cut off his pinky toe than wave and stretch Evan Fournier.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing that they're going to do. Thanks, Jean-Marc. I listen, I appreciate the thought, but like, that's just not something this front office is going to engage in. Jeremy Franco, RJ plus Fournier for PG. How many firsts would we need to add? It's a good question.
It is. Let me preface this by saying this one thing. I understand, obviously, that we get carried away and we are at a point of influence and we can't influence thought. The math being clean makes me really excited about how the opportunity can present itself. It also doesn't mean that the Clippers have any interest in moving Paul George, especially if they can move the flotsam of salary out and still get James Harden, who's on what is now essentially an expiring deal, get him in the building and still extend him and keep their big three. So yeah, it'd be great if they could get Paul George. I want to reiterate that because I know I got excited earlier. And I want to temper some sort of expectations too. With that said, I would imagine that in order to get him, it would be involving one unprotected pick, the 2024 unprotected pick.
That's exactly what I was going to say. 1 to
2 protected picks, depending on which ones. It would not be the Mavs pick.
Let's do
it 2. Would probably be right, but the value would probably be closer to the Pistons pick and maybe the Wizards pick. Pistons pick or the Bucks pick. Man, again, how many suitors, if the Clippers wanted to move off of Paul George, how many other suitors would be there where it's worth their while because he's an older player, because they have to pay him a lot of money, because he misses significant time. The drawbacks for why I wasn't thrilled about getting him in the first place, but would learn to love it because I could understand it, but I still would need time to really get into the mood to get Paul George onto the Knicks.
Need some heavy petting. By the way, Cynic was asking about what to expect for Summer League. The Trevor Keels show. I mean, Quickley's not playing. Sims, I think, is still recovering from his injury. He's not playing. Obi Toppin, I don't believe is going to be playing Summer League for the Knicks. I would be shocked if Quentin
You mean
Grimes.
Jacob Toppin or Obi?
No,
Toppin?
I meant Obi Toppin.
Oh yeah, I don't think he'd be playing for the Knicks either this summer.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be the Trevor Keeler show. I'm excited to see the two-way kid they got after the draft. Not Toppin, the other one. I understand he's raw as all hell, but yeah, I'm curious to see him. That's all. Todd Rahulik just wanted to give props to Jeremy. He does such a great job breaking everything down for dummies like myself. Jeremy, would you want to work in an NBA front office?
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick, Todd. I would love to do that. That'd be a pretty awesome dream. But with that said, first of all, you're not dummies about this. It's all complicated stuff. And this is stuff I get the pleasure of relearning because a lot of it's changing moving forward. And I need to beef up on that. But this is in so many ways my creative outlet. I love talking with people and communicating, and I love this team. And what better way to do it than with my great co-host and a great production team and a great team that I have with me at KFS. So I really appreciate the kind words, but I'm also nothing without the support that I have here and outside of this podcast with family and friends. So yeah, thank you.
That's a pro accepted speech right there.
I mean every word.
I know. It's because you're a good guy. Sam Garcia's dad. Just tune back in. Does Jeremy really think we're getting Paul George? If so, why? I think Jeremy actually just answered that question. So
yeah,
kind of no.
No,
but why is what?
But yeah, no. Sorry, continue.
No, the why is interesting. It's like again, why? That really is what it comes down to. Why would the Clippers trade Paul George? And I would imagine it's because they have more serious qualms about all the reason that Knicks fans have serious qualms about Paul George, about paying his next contract and about the injury issues and all these things. I don't know.
I think the one thing, if there's anyone I trust, it's Brian Windhorst as well, who said that the Clippers, they don't really want to break up. They want to have a big three. So it stands to reason why they would want to keep Paul George in their building, because like, oh, you're telling me that we can add to this as opposed to swapping one out and swapping one in. Because if we can add to it, I mean, I got to tell you, when you open a new stadium a year from now, having Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and James Harden all under contract, that's going to sell some tickets. It's going to fill a lot of toilets. Toilets.
I think it's a good team, too, for what it's worth. Thanks, Sam Garcia's dad. Anthony Strano, how does Jeremy Grant feel today? I mean, look, Jeremy Grant feels great. 160 million reasons to feel great.
Mm-hmm. He'll get Blake Griffin. It's fine.
That's why I was interested in what Fred had to say about Grant. He's a great locker room guy and so on and so forth. I will be curious to see what that contract eventually fetches in trade. We'll see. Hagai Weiser, does DiVincenzo only shoot well in spaced offenses like Golden State and Milwaukee? I went back and watched all of his shooting possessions from just the playoffs. He could shoot from some distance. And by the way, the thing about the Knicks offense is like he's gonna get open looks, because he think about the Knicks offense. It's Jalen Brunson. He attracts some attention. It's Julius Randle. He attracts some attention. And then when they're either of those guys or RJ misses, it's Mitchell Robinson grabbing the offensive rebound or Isaiah Hardenstein grabbing the offensive rebound. And Mitchell Robinson has gone on the record and said, what do I do when I grab an offensive rebound? First thing, look for an open three-point shooter. This is what their offense is. This is how their offense is built. They just need guys to hit those shots. I think it's going to be fine. I don't think you're going to see a big drop off. The assist stuff, like that's, the Warriors always lead the league in assists. So he's not going to average as many assists or assist percentage and all that stuff. But, the skills are translatable.
Yeah. Also, I mean, look, Stephen Curry is Stephen Curry. Giannis Antetokounmpo is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jalen Brunson, he commands a lot of attention. Julius Randle commands a lot of attention. Talking about two guys who are among top 10 in the league in terms of double teamed. They're going to need players to receive the kickouts. And maybe now that Julius is watching more film of himself, he can recognize, oh, I know exactly where Donte DiVincenzo is going to be. I know where Quentin Grimes is going to be. I know where Immanuel Quickley is going to be. I know where RJ Barrett's going to be. I know where all these players are. Josh Hart. And you hope that, cool, it connects more. And then that gives you the opportunity, like with DiVincenzo, where now he's shooting even more open shots, wide open shots.
I'm going to actually go back on something I said earlier about, oh, man, it'd be really cool to see DiVincenzo and Grimes and Hart on the floor at the same time. I actually have a prediction that I'll make right now. And I think this prediction is independent of anything else the Knicks do this summer. You're going to get 48 minutes of DiVincenzo and Grimes, meaning one of those guys will be on the floor at all times. And actually, I would not be surprised if this is going to be a shocker to some. If Tibbs was somewhat rigid about this. I know. Tibbs, rigidity in the same sentence. What are you trying to sell me here, Macri? No, like 48 minutes. I think that's your shooting guard. It's Grimes will start, and I think DiVincenzo off the bench, and whether it's 24-24, 26-22, or whatever, just so the Knicks are always going to have that catch and shoot threat out on the floor. And I bet you I'm prepared to write that, maybe not in pen, but in pretty dark pencil. It just checks out.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree.
Hashu, what's more likely, an Embiid trade to the Knicks or Jay Wright coming out of retirement to coach the Knicks when Tibbs' contract is up? What you mean when he's King Tibbs in the GM spot? Embiid trade.
Yeah, Jay Wright is living the life. He's wealthy, doesn't have to coach anymore, and that's it. It's pretty good to be rich and retired.
Won 2 championships? Like, what's better than that? Okay. On that note, I
we did it again. I love how we could go into every single podcast, the last 2, being like, all right, we can roll through this one. It's fine. And then bam, it's an hour.
For an hour and a half?
And I love it because we have enough content to talk about and enough questions being asked, enough incredible support for us to last an hour and a half for another live stream, the second one of the day. If you realize, John, that it was 4 hours and 45 minutes yesterday. It's the equivalent of 3 hours today. That's almost 8 hours of content in a 27-hour span, 28-hour span, something like that. I don't know what to tell you, but my ass is sore from sitting down, and I don't care because I'm having a blast.
I'm having a blast too. This is great. I mean it when I say, and I speak on behalf of Jeremy and Andrew and the entire Knicks Film School team. We are honored to be able to do this. We are honored that people come and want to spend time with us when these sorts of things happen, and get our, I don't know what you want to call what we do, reaction analysis, whatever. It's a role that we do not take lightly. So thank you everybody for your support over the last few days. I guess this may be could be the last time we see you for a little while, in terms of live streams, but we'll see. Thanks for tuning in, Andrew. Unless there's nothing else, I'm going to bid everybody adieu. Peace out. Take care. Enjoy your weekend.